Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share our content on the internet. Thank you so much and enjoy the video.
Okay, let's get this out of the way. The Room is not the worst movie ever, not by a long shot. While you can easily tear apart films like The Room for their overtly noticeable audio dubbing, strange and somewhat comical dialogue, the nonsensical story direction, or just the overall performances in the film, at the same time, these are all the reasons that people love it. For a movie like The Room, it takes a level of blissful ignorance to create something that could be enjoyed by so many for all of the wrong reasons, and be embraced with all the attention it has. But it takes a special type of film to defy all odds and have no redeemable quality. In this episode of Film History Digests, we'll be going over what makes the worst movie ever made, and what that really means in the grand scheme of things. Now, while going over what makes a bad movie bad, and what that means in comparison to some of the greatest movies ever made, it all comes down to how we objectively value films. With the worst film ever made, the idea of what constitutes that quality is more based on the inability of the people in charge of the product. That's why you constantly see films like The Room, Birdemic, Troll 2, and Food Fight at the top of the lists for the worst films ever made. With The Room, the story around the film is arguably more important than the film itself. The reason why people enjoy hating The Room so much is because of how strange it is, and wondering how it could make it through all the steps of the filmmaking process. With Tommy Wiseau, a director who was relatively unknown for the time, he was able to put up a billboard advertising his film in one of the most active parts of Los Angeles. With Tommy Wiseau being a very oddball character, and the movie's exceedingly strange and somewhat humorous content, seeing this movie would make people wonder about the person behind the film. It is strange to wonder how he managed to procure enough money to keep the billboard up for as long as he did, let alone fund the production of the film. Since there was very little known about Tommy Wiseau's nationality, finances, and just the overall production of the film, it leaves a mysterious aura around The Room, which was intriguing enough to give the film the reputation it has today. With the retroactive fame the movie's gotten, with Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell's book on the making of the film, James Franco's biopic, and the documentaries made on it, it shows the cultural relevance of this film as it enters the general filmgoer's psyche. However, for a film like The Room to make as large of an impact as it has, it is somewhat unfair to call it the worst movie ever made. While from a technical standpoint, there are a lot more movies that have failed far more spectacularly than The Room has, you can tell, despite the sheer amount of incompetence in the film, there were a lot of people who really put their all into it. With the mass cult following of the film and the utter love it's gotten, to call this movie the worst film ever made is a disservice to the people who spent their time enjoying it for all of the wrong reasons. While The Room may have been a bad movie, there is enough good about the movie to justify the film's cult following. With the passion put behind the film, it is quite sustainable for the film to have received the attention it has. Even though it's widely believed to have been unintentional, the film's reputation as a black comedy has been what it will be recognized for, rather than the actual quality of the film. When it comes to The Room, you can get a lot worse than this movie. A lot worse. Going past The Room, you have to hit a level of sheer incompetence that just leaves the audience member in a perpetual state of awe. One of the most jaw-dropping examples of a bad film is After Last Season, which was made in possibly the most incompetent way imaginable. With shallow acting, atrocious music, poorly framed shots, horrible special effects, and a nonsensical storyline, it could be considered one of the worst movies ever made. While you can make a strong case against the film, the fact that you can marvel at the sheer incompetence on display is still a positive factor of the viewing experience. While technically speaking, After Last Season could be the worst movie, hitting the bottom of the barrel should mean finding a film that has no positive merits whatsoever, even in the so bad it's good way. The worst movie ever made should leave you with nothing gained from the experience whatsoever, and be a slog to get through. The issue with this idea is that a movie like that is less interesting to talk about than The Room and After Last Season's out there. While looking for a terrible movie with no discernible positive qualities to it, the worst criticism you can make for a truly awful movie is that it was just boring. When you criticize filmmaking, if all you can say about something is that it was boring, then you wouldn't bring much attention to it. So when you watch a movie like After Last Season or The Room and laugh at it or bring friends over, it keeps your attention, and you leave the film having gained a truly great experience from it. While it generally takes a large deal of effort and a devoted director behind a movie to release a finished film, for those movies that take no effort and come from the greed of corporate Hollywood, those are the really bad movies. The films that inflate their budget so far and flop so hard, those are the types of movies that deserve the title of the worst movie ever made. While films like Jack and Jill might be painful to watch and fall under the same circumstances, it's clear that it was the movie they were trying to go for. By definition, the movie Jack and Jill was made to be so bad it's good, which automatically makes it, sadly enough, enjoyable to some people. The movies that trade hands so often that the end product is indistinguishable from the initial intent, the movies that go through the system so much and lose any creative integrity that they may have had, are the real worst movies ever made. The films that are so creatively bankrupt, they're an insult to the medium as a whole. This is most often shown with films that take a well-beloved franchise or characters and make it just another entry into its respective series. When the title of the movie is lost and the film just becomes another product, it loses its artistic integrity. To become just another drop in the vast sea of Hollywood output, where you get tricked into watching something where the first intention was not to make a well-made movie, but you're tricked into paying for it anyway. That's why films like Solo, a Star Wars story, flopped as hard as they did, and films like Suicide Squad are so technically flawed, yet constitute another one of those so bad it's good films. While Solo is just another Star Wars film, Suicide Squad was able to amass a somewhat faithful following by the emo crowd, even being enough for them to make a sequel and earn an Oscar. This becomes ever more insulting when it devalues the series it came from, and ends up tainting the reputation of the originals. With the unending studio intervention, it shows that a computer and focus groups cannot make a quality movie. It takes risks and creativity in order to make a movie which resonates with its audience, like the original Star Wars did back in 1977. The backlash on The Last Jedi shows what happens when you try to take too many risks and end up alienating your audience. For companies like Disney, they look at statistics like this and try to figure out what went wrong. When companies do this, they try to course correct as much as possible, creating movies that are as unbalanced as The Rise of Skywalker, or in a different sense, The Last Jedi when they received criticism about The Force Awakens being too reminiscent of A New Hope. When creating a new film in a franchise, you have to toe the line between risking too much and not risking enough. That's why we've seen such a large hiatus on Disney's future Lucasfilm projects after the release of The Rise of Skywalker. While Sony ends up getting most of the flack in the film industry for being the most meddling film studio, it's mainly due to its attention towards larger franchises and not letting their directors fulfill their creative duties. Disney, on the other hand, is a cultural powerhouse, and the creative chokehold Disney has over our world's entertainment is unprecedented. Sony's logo is just their name, while Disney largely attributes its logo with Mickey Mouse and keeps a large relation of the brand with its franchises. For them to meddle, it's keeping in line with the outlook of the company rather than to create the best possible outcome. Inadvertently, the output of Disney films represent not only the studio's kid-friendly image, but the image portrayed by Mickey Mouse himself. So, with the studio assets growing more and more, it actually hinders their creative potential. While looking at Sony, studio meddling at all, it has put out some of the best films in the last decade. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a milestone in technical innovation, with its continual development of 2D and 3D animation techniques. The Social Network is well revered as one of the most well-received films of all time. So, to compare these films to the likes of the Emoji Movie, the 2016 Ghostbusters, The Dark Tower, or any of Adam Sandler's endless troves of schlock, you can see where the criticism comes from. While there are some truly awful films made at Sony, when compared to the likes of Disney, you begin to realize how they've still yet to gain a grasp on creativity in any truly self-resonating films, outside of the studios they've acquired. The best received Disney movies during the last decade have been made by Pixar or Marvel. While critically and financially good investments, the idea of mainstream theatrical film experiences have leaned more towards this homogenization of types of movies that have found success. That's why we've seen so many directors like Martin Scorsese and David Fincher move over to the Netflix production pipeline. While looking at Disney's most critically acclaimed films of the last decade, nothing even comes close to what Sony has put out in terms of pure spectacle. So, while looking at the worst movie ever made, Instead of focusing on what you might see as a technical disaster, be more careful about the type of content you get excited for just to be let down in all the worst ways. And while it's still possible that there's no correlation between certain movies, studios, and the quality of movies that they make, it may be worth changing who we blame for the faults of some of those movies. So when we laugh at the Rooms and the Trolls 2s out there, we can still live in solace knowing that the same treatment was not done to one of our favorite film franchises. And for the Solos out there, the best we can do as an audience member is show Disney that we would not flock towards the same representative stale movie just because it has a character we recognize. In the end, we want to be shown the power of film. Whether it's using characters we've loved over the decades or a completely new franchise, creativity and innovation will always be the driving force behind what makes a film truly excellent. Hey everyone, my name's Rex. Thank you so much for watching Film History Digests. If you want to support the channel, while we always appreciate subscriptions, turning on notifications, liking the video, things like that, it would help us out a lot more if you'd be willing to share the video on Twitter, Facebook, Discord, or any other social platform you're on. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We upload every month. If you liked the video, or even if you hated it, let us know in the comments below. All of your feedback is appreciated more than you may know. And if you like my voice, you can head over to fulfillstudios.com to commission me. I do voiceover and voice acting. I do video editing and music production and podcast editing and all sorts of stuff. So if you'd like to commission me, head over to fulfillstudios.com. And if you want to see some of the other content we've released, check out some of the videos we have on the screen. I would also like to note that I am a huge fan of Solo personally, but I was willing to put that aside in the pursuit of documenting history, not opinion. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching.